if you're sat on the fence about whether this Jesus stuff is real or not, and you need some like concrete evidence, which, ultimately it should be a walk of faith, right? But if you just need a little push and you need a few things that just open your mind to like, how could this book tell this stuff? This is some really good apologetics.
Welcome to the Bible in 1 Year podcast, brought to you by two Brits and a Bible.
Today is day 261, covering Daniel 10, 11, and 12.
I'm not sure if I've mentioned my theory on the Welsh accent before, but I think in Welsh, any sentence you start low, as long as you finish higher than you started it, it sounds Welsh. Because I think everything you say in Welsh starts down here, but eventually you end up here.
I think you're right. I think that there's a bit more to it though, but because you're so skilled with accents, in your head, that makes sense, I'm sure. In my head, if I start low and then go high, I don't sound Welsh.
You sounded Welsh. Cool. So Daniel 10, verse 2. At that time, I mourned Daniel, mourned for 3 weeks. I ate no choice food, no meat, and no wine touched my lips. A really simple point. I just love it. Daniel's basically seen this vision and it troubled him. And so he mourned for 3 weeks. And I was like, sometimes we need to kind of show God we're serious about a matter. I think often the idea of fasting and praying is quite overlooked in our sort of modern culture, but there's such biblical reference to it. And I think it's so important that, yes, it's good to pray, and yes, God can do everything, hear any prayer, etc. But sometimes to actively fast and just commit yourself to doing something, I'm not saying that it changes God's mind or anything like that, but it's showing God that you're dead serious about something. And I feel like that sometimes has an extra bit of oomph to it, if that's not blasphemous.
Well, no, I don't think it's blasphemous. I think that you're right in the sense of like, it just shows your obedience, it shows your sincerity, right? And it reminds me of like the Nazarene, I'm trying to remember the like vows, is it? The Nazarene vows and stuff, or pacts or whatever. So like Samson and all that sort of stuff, right? So if these strict rules weren't important to God, at least on some level, then why would Nazarenes even exist? So I think it's good to show that you care through these things. And it kind of points back to Daniel 1, right? The fact that he didn't want to eat any of the indulgent food or drink any of the indulgent wine. That's cool, man. So then Daniel 10, verse 6, his body was like topaz, his face like lightning, his eyes like flaming torches, his arms and legs like the gleam of burnished bronze, and his voice like the sound of a multitude. It's just so cool how similar Daniel's account of seeing God is to Ezekiel's description of God. It's like very similar imagery, very similar kind of like descriptive language. And similarly to when Ezekiel sees God, and just his reaction is to just be speechless and fall down on his knees, right? It's exactly what happens with Daniel.
Yeah.
And I just think that there is going to be this universal reaction like that when we see our maker, that is just what happens. It's almost an instinct if that makes some sense. Not exactly an instinct, but just like there's no other reaction that we could do.
Yeah.
I just think that's really.
There's a great song by Fatfish, I think it was, and it's along the lines of, "Will I stand in your presence, to my knees will I fall?" And it was like, I can't remember the name of it. I tried to sing it but it's like, when I see Jesus face to face, what am I going to do? Will I stand and worship? Will I just fall prostrate on the ground? How am I actually going to act in that moment? And I just kind of like it, really. I'm just having a quick look here to see when Daniel was written compared to Ezekiel, because we know that Daniel referenced Jeremiah, but is it something that Daniel saw what Ezekiel had written about God and his vision and had studied the book of Ezekiel to know, and then that sort of impacted his thoughts on it, or whether they were written around a similar time and actually Daniel wouldn't have had access to that stuff? I'm not sure I can find that answer, but we would have referenced it in the earlier days of when they were both written.
Absolutely, dude. Yeah, find out for yourselves, people. And you know how you find out? Know how? Do you? Pick up this Bible and you get reading.
You just listen, actually. Ezekiel probably 592, 587, Daniel 537, 536, maybe like 70 years after the book of Ezekiel. So whether it was actively available on Spotify at that stage, don't know.
Probably not, but yeah, he might have been aware of it. It's possible. My next point's in 11, so I think 10:20.
Just a really quick point, because it's saying in 10:20, I will return to, I'm not sure even who it's talking about. I'll return to the fight against the Prince of Persia and will go, the Prince of Greece will come. And it's just confirming some of the points that were previously made. We were chatting about yesterday with the specific armies and nations at specific times. So
exactly right. So there's that reference, as I said, to Alexander the Great seeing the book of Daniel, being so impressed that he spares Jerusalem. I said about reading the book of Daniel chapter 9 in dreams. Just read all the chapters, but chapter 11 as well, completely insane. So if you read it, like, there's no way I can fit this into the podcast, but effectively everything that Gabriel said to Daniel bit by bit comes true as well. It talks about the daughter of the king of the south shall go to the king of the north and make an agreement, and that was fulfilled in the marriage between Antiochus II and Berenice, the daughter of Ptolemy II, and so on. It goes through point by point, and every single one of these things that is said gets fulfilled. It's so thoroughly detailed. It's not even funny. Yeah. So if you're sat on the fence about whether this Jesus stuff is real or not, and you need some like concrete evidence, which ultimately it should be a walk of faith, right? But if you just need a little push and you need a few things that just open your mind to, like, how could this book tell this stuff? This is some really good apologetics. And if you've got a friend or something that like maybe is struggling a bit with this and you want to just point him in the direction of something. I
already know who I'm sending it to, and he probably knows as well, and you probably know who it's going to be as well by this stage. It's David's coming to you, mate. Anyway, okay, question for you then, dude. 1141 and a couple of other times it mentions about invading the beautiful land. Do we know where the beautiful land is?
Let me have a look by scrolling through this enormous document of point-by-point stuff. So that's 1141, isn't it?
Yeah, although it mentions it in other spots as well, I think.
I think that the glorious land is meant to refer to the Holy Land, as in Israel.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that the Holy Land, the glorious land is the Holy Land, is the Promised Land. It's all synonymous with Israel. Okay. Just from a quick reading. Yeah.
It's not Buckinghamshire then.
No, I mean, Buckinghamshire is a beautiful land, indefinite article, but not maybe the beautiful land, definitely.
That's cool.
But then we both got 12-2. So, let's go for it.
Go on, dude.
All right. So multitudes who sleep in the dust of the earth will awake, some to everlasting life, others to shame and everlasting contempt. And that is a pretty awesome summary of judgment. I actually realized I wanted to talk about 12:4 more, which is about how Daniel is instructed to roll up and seal the words of the scroll until the time of the end. And I think that is probably the scroll that Jesus opens in Revelation. That's an incredible reference as well, but I might be wrong about it. So
interesting.
Slightly above my pay.
You missed that, mate. I love that. Thank you.
All good?
Yeah, you're already a little bit sketched, but I think we're getting it, so we'll plow on through.
Cool. All right. So I think you had 12:10.
Yeah, 12:10, really tiny one, just to end the episode here. It says, many will be purified, made spotless and refined, but the wicked will continue to be wicked. Ain't that the truth?
Yeah, awesome. Love that.
Smashing. So tomorrow we are Hosea 1-7. So why don't you beautiful people pick up your Bibles, get on reading.
In the meantime, please consider joining us on social media at 2 Brits and a Bible. And hey, why don't you share